Hello and welcome to Dear Esther. So, this is a game that's been out for a few years now. It was originally a mod for the source engine, but it was later reworked as a complete standalone, commercially released and sold game. I was looking for something different than what I'd been playing. Basically, I wanted something that was kind of mellow and calm and not stressful. And I knew about this game, and I knew roughly what kind of game it was, and so I decided to pick it up. Now, I've already played through it once. It's pretty short. I should actually be able to get through the entire game in one recording session. There's 4 chapters to it, and I'm going to break it up according to chapter, so there'll be 1 video per chapter. Because it's kind of a somber game, I'm not going to be trying to be witty, more informative or contemplative, talking about what I'm thinking about things. The other thing is that, well, the way it works is the game has been referred to as a walking simulator. So there's no puzzles. There's nothing you do except move through the world. And while you're doing that, you come across things that you can look at, and there's a narration. Now, I've read that the complete narration, all of the possible things that can be said by the narrator, are not said during a given playthrough. So, in other words, the idea is that there's replayability. You play through it multiple times, and only then do you basically hear everything that there is to hear. So, like I said, I've already played through it once, and I'm going to play through it again, and this time record it, and we'll see what kind of differences there are, if any, between the narration from the first time I played through it, and this one. Also, there are, in certain places, there are like side paths and things you can go looking at, but I'm not going to look at every one of them because, a lot of the stuff is just kind of dead ends and so forth, and if it's something I think will be interesting, I'll point it out, and I'll walk over there, but I'm not going to do that for everything. The other thing about this game is some of the visuals are really striking. I mean, what you're looking at right now is a good example of that. And so, this is a cave system, and it's really amazing the detail that was put into this. This was made on the Source engine. This was released, I think, back in 2012? 3 or 4 years old. And, and even then the Source engine was not young, was not new. But even today, it's pretty amazing what they managed to do with it. I'm really looking forward to see what is possible with the successor to the Source engine. Source 2, I believe it's going to be called. I don't know if anything uses it yet. But, anyway, we'll see. Alright, so here we go with Dear Esther. Start at the beginning. Yes.
Dear Esther, the morning after I was washed ashore, salt in my ears, sand in my mouth, and the waves always at my ankles, I felt as though everything had conspired to this one last shipwreck. I remembered nothing but water, stones in my belly and my shoes, threatening to drag me under to where only the most listless of creatures swim.
So this is an island in the Hebrides, which is a group of islands off of the west coast of Scotland. So we're basically the North Sea. So I think, since I think we're getting close to evening, that's roughly west there. So you're looking out at the North Sea, and which means it probably would really be as cold as it looks like it is. So there's some buildings here. There's really nothing inside them. There's like some books and stuff. You see these cans of paint. That's going to come into play later. You'll notice that as I walked in here, my flashlight came on. So you see, this is luminous paint. This is pretty much everywhere. There's a lot of cans of this stuff around. This is a diagram of the ethanol molecule. C2H5OH. This is ethanol, also known as grain alcohol, also known as the kind of alcohol that you find in beer, wine, and liquor, the kind that gets you drunk if you drink it. Now, if there were just one carbon atom with an H over here instead of this CH3, so it would be CH3OH, that would be methanol, which is also known as wood alcohol, also known as rubbing alcohol, also known as the stuff that makes you go blind if you drink it, so don't. More cans of paint. Lots of cans of paint. You'll see why later. Actually, I'm going to stay down here. If you go up here along that trail, you'll come to a gap that you can't cross, which means you have to turn around and come back down here anyway, so I'm not going to worry about that. And you can see some sort of antenna in the distance there. And this is all the faster you can move, too. You have one movement speed. There's no running, there's no jumping, there's no crouching, just moving forward. Your body is not rendered, but that's normal for Source Engine games. There's nothing of you that you see in the game world. Which is one of the things I don't like about Source Engine games, you know, and Half-Life. And what I like about some games that I've played, where it actually does render your entire body. The Chronicles of Riddick, Escape from Butcher Bay, or its sort of remake, Assault on Dark Athena, is a game where your whole body is rendered. And it really adds to the immersion of the game. Oh, this is kind of interesting. Okay, so now the last time I played this...
At night, you can see the lights sometimes from a passing tanker or trawler. From up on the cliffs, they are mundane. But down here, they fugue into ambiguity. For instance, I cannot readily tell if they belong above or below the waves. The distinction now seems banal. Why not everything and all at once? There's nothing better to do here than indulge in contradictions whilst waiting for the fabric of life to unravel.
Oh. What is this? This looks kind of like... So, I didn't come through here the last time. I didn't realize that that gap in the rocks there existed. So, this is actually new. This looks kind of like... Oh, what do they call that? There's like a spiral... There's a name for this. Archimedean spiral or something like that. It has something to do with like the golden ratio or something like that. It doesn't look quite exactly like that, but... Yeah, I'm going to come over here. I think I'm going to have to turn around and go back, but maybe not. I don't know.
Dear Esther, I found myself to be as featureless as this ocean, as shallow and unoccupied as this bay, a listless wreck without identification. My rocks are these bones, and a careful fence to keep the precipice at bay. Shot through me caves, my forehead a mount. This aerial will transmit into me so. All overexposed, the nervous system, where Donnelly's boots and yours and mine still trample. I will carry a torch for you. I will leave it at the foot of my headstone. You will need it for the tunnels that carry me under.
So, this guy's letters, basically it's like letters that he wrote to Esther, which is his wife. The thing is I don't know if you're supposed to be Esther, or if you're supposed to be him, or if you're supposed to be Donnelly, or if you're supposed to be just some other person. It wasn't made clear on my first playthrough, so I don't know. Anyway, we'll have to backtrack. Also, it is possible to die in this game. I don't know if you noticed that, but it seems like sometimes the camera altitude will change for no apparent reason. I'm not sure why. But anyway, what was I saying? I lost my train of thought. Oh well, maybe I'll pick it up. continue to move on, but look at the clouds. I mean, that they did a really nice job. God rays, volumetric lighting, or at least the illusion of volumetric lighting. And no, you can't. That lighthouse over there, you can't climb up there. If you go into the room where the staircase to the lighthouse would be, you'll find that the bottom part of the staircase is missing, so you can't climb it.
The mount is clearly the focal point of this landscape. It almost appears so well placed as to be artificial. I find myself easily slipping into the delusional state of ascribing purpose, deliberate motive to everything here. Was this island formed during the moment of impact?
Moment of impact.
When we were torn loose from our moorings, and the seatbelts cut motorway lanes into our chests and shoulders, did it first break surface then?
So here we have a reference, an apparent reference to, based on the words there.
When someone had died or was dying, or was so ill they gave up what little hope they could sacrifice, they cut parallel lines into the cliff, exposing the white chalk beneath. You could see them from the mainland or a fishing boat, and know to send aid or impose a cordon of protection, and wait a generation until whatever pestilence stalked the cliff path died along with its hosts. My lines are just for this, to keep any would-be rescuers at bay. The infection is not simply of the flesh.
So anyway, you heard what he was saying before, something about seatbelts and the moment of impact. That would suggest a car accident of some kind. Also very good ambient sound. I mean, look at the foliage detail.
I quote directly, "A motley lot with little to recommend them. I have now spent 3 days in their company. That is, I fear, enough for any man not born amongst them. Despite their tedious inclination to quote scripture, they seem to me the most godforsaken of all the inhabitants of the outer isles. Indeed, in this case, the very gravity of that term, forsaken by God, seems to find its very apex. It appears to me that Donnelly, too, found those who wander this shoreline to be adrift from any chance of redemption. Did he include himself in that, I wonder?
So it's as if he's reading something that was written by this Donnelly person. Although if you look closely at the foliage, you see that they're sprites. Two-dimensional, and they always turn to face me. But if you don't turn, if you don't strafe around them like that, you get a nice sort of illusion that they're real. But it also means much better performance, which is, why it's running so smoothly. I basically have all of the settings turned up to maximum. And I don't even know what frame rate is, but it's certainly faster than 60. So we make our way down the trail here. We see a wrecked boat of some kind. There appears to be another lighthouse in the distance. Unfortunately, you can't walk over there and see it, so I'm not even going to try.
Dear Esther, I met Paul. I made my own little pilgrimage. My Damascus, a small semi-detached on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. We drank coffee in his kitchen and tried to connect to one another. Although he knew I hadn't come in search of an apology, reason or retribution, he still spiraled in panic, thrown high and lucid by his own dented bonnet. Responsibility had made him old. Like us, he'd already passed beyond any conceivable boundary of life.
So Paul, here we have, there's a few of these in the game, basically places that once you drop down, you can't climb back up. So Paul and his Damascus, now that's a reference to the biblical account of the conversion of Paul on the road to Damascus. As you will see, there will be other references to that. Also, he said something about coming to seek an apology, or not seeking an apology, and Paul's dented bonnet. That implies that Paul was somehow
I find
involved
myself increasingly
in the
unable
auto
to find
accident.
that point where the hermit ends and Paul and I begin. We are woven into a sodden blanket, stuffed into the bottom of a boat to stop the leak and hold back the ocean. My neck aches from staring up at the aerial. It mirrors the dull throb in my gut where I am sure I've begun to form another stone. In my dreams, it forms into a perfect representation of Lot's wife, head over her shoulder, staring along the motorway at the approaching traffic in a vacuum of fatalistic calm.
So some kind of hermit is referred to here. And Paul and he on a boat, as if they were together on a boat that shipwrecked here. So here we have more of this luminescent paint. That appears to be a neuron. Here we have our ethanol molecule again. With something that kind of looks like, I don't know, more neurons or something. Here we have, I don't know what that is. Another neuron. More like nerve diagram or something, kind of like a tree or something. Cans of luminous paint. Something that shifted, which it did the last time I walked past that point during the first playthrough. We have a sleeping bag over here. So somebody was sleeping here. And I guess the idea is that that sound you heard was supposed to be a can of paint shifting. So, not, just a cave, it's a dead end, but it was interesting to look at. Actually, wait, that might be the lighthouse. Actually, you know what, I think that's the lighthouse we started at. We're just around the other side of it. Music is very melancholy. Moving up the trail. This game, or maybe it's better to say this experience, is deliberately slow and measured. It's not something you rush through.
He still maintains he wasn't drunk, but tired. I can't make the judgment or the distinction anymore. I was drunk when I landed here, and tired too. I walked up the cliff path in near darkness and camped in the bay where the trawler lies beached. It was only at dawn that I saw the bothy and decided to make my temporary lodgings there. I was expecting just the aerial and a transmitter stashed in a weatherproof box somewhere on the mount. It had an air of uneasy permanence to it. Like all the other buildings here, erosion seems to have evaded it completely.
So I could, well, previously I could zoom in by clicking the mouse button. Maybe I can't do that yet. Units in chemistry. These books are laid out here. We have a chemical symbol here, something a little more complex. A sugar, perhaps. Oh, I still can't zoom in. We're going to make our way up through here, through this, I guess what would be the word for this? Defile? I think this would be called a defile. I'm not sure, though. But he's referring to Paul being drunk or tired. Okay, and here we have another. All right, so this is the end of the first chapter. So I am going to
Dear
go
Esther,
ahead. Whoops.
I have now driven the stretch of the M5 between Exeter
wait
and
until this
Bristol
is
over
done.
21 times. But although I have all the reports and all the witnesses, and have cross-referenced them within a millimetre using my Ordnance Survey maps, I simply cannot find the location. You'd think there would be marks to serve as some evidence. It's somewhere between the turn-off for Sanford and the welcome break services. But although I can always see it in my rear-view mirror, I have as yet been unable to pull ashore.
So I think in that he's referring to the location of the accident. Anyway, like I said, that was the end of the first chapter, so I'm going to go ahead and end this recording and pick it up in the next one.